The 2020 election is nearing the home stretch. With Election Day just 8 days away, both President Trump and Joe Biden made their way to the battleground state of Pennsylvania on Monday, although the two took very different approaches to their events. Biden held a smaller, socially distanced event, while the president opted for 3 jam-packed rallies. Vice President Mike Pence was also on the campaign trail today, even after 5 close aides tested positive for the coronavirus. CBS News White House correspondent Paula Reed has the latest.
President Trump told Pennsylvania voters today his future was in their hands.
By the way, we win Pennsylvania, we win the whole thing. You got to get out there.
Down by 7 points in the latest CBS News Battleground Tracker poll, President Trump blanketed the Keystone State with 3 separate stops. His goal? Turn out longtime Republicans and overcome Joe Biden's gains in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
We're all trying to fight to get back, and I know Trump can get us back to where we should be.
Not to be outdone, Biden too showed up in Pennsylvania, calling attention to Chief of Staff Mark Meadows' admission this weekend that the administration would not get control of the virus.
We're not going to control the pandemic. We are going to control the fact that we get vaccines, therapeutics.
And he said, we're not going to control it. Not going to control it. The bottom line is Donald Trump is the worst possible president, the worst possible person to try to lead us through this pandemic.
With another COVID outbreak inside the White House, the vice president's top aide, Mark Short, tested positive along with 4 others in Pence's circle. President Trump still told supporters in Allentown the pandemic was nearing its end.
And we're rounding the turn. You know, all they want to talk about is COVID.
But the U.S. saw a record number of infections nationwide in recent days.
You know, Mr. President, you have to have a little bit of shame. Just a little bit of shame, because people are dying.
Vice President Pence campaigned in Minnesota today despite his recent exposure.
It is great to be back in the North Star states.
But health experts disputed the official justification from the White House that Mr. Pence's campaign work was essential and in accordance with CDC guidelines.
I don't think any of us think campaigning, as important as it is critical infrastructure for our country. He should really be in quarantine.
And Paula Reed joins me now from the White House. Hi there, Paula. Are you hearing anything more about this second White House outbreak?
We know, Elaine, that at least 5 members of the vice president's inner circle have tested positive. And as you noted, this is the second major outbreak here at the Trump White House affecting top officials. There have also been smaller outbreaks, but what's so significant is really not seeing any additional precautions that they're taking. Continues to be really mostly business as usual here at the White House. And of course, despite the fact that he has had close exposure to at least 1 person who has tested positive, the vice president is still out on the campaign trail. He is in a state, specifically Minnesota, where health officials have already connected at least 23 COVID cases in the state. 2 events put on by the Trump campaign over the past month. Now, they've also connected at least 1 to events put on by the Biden campaign, but it is a very surprising strategy, especially since this is the head of the task force for coronavirus. And we see in polls that the majority of voters do not think that the coronavirus has been handled very well by this administration. So to continue to push forward with this sort of devil-may-care strategy, it's unclear how that's really going to help them in these key states.
More broadly, Paula, are any new extra precautions being taken around the White House?
I haven't seen any so far, Elaine. Even when you go talk with officials in the West Wing, most of them still aren't wearing masks, particularly more senior ones who feel more confident. That's been pretty consistent over the past 9 months, even with the very significant outbreak that we saw several weeks ago after the nomination ceremony in the Rose Garden for Judge, perhaps soon to be Justice Amy Coney Barrett. For a few moments there, you saw more people wearing masks, but it appears that that has really passed and folks are back again. Business as usual here.
Wow, really, that makes a statement in and of itself. Paula, President Trump and Joe Biden were both in Pennsylvania Monday, where Biden has a slight edge, according to our CBS News Battleground Tracker. What is on the line in Pennsylvania, and how is the president trying to win over any undecided voters?
It's such a significant state, Elaine. That's why the president made 3 stops there today. And while the former vice president had just one event today, it was in Pennsylvania. It really is critical. And what's interesting is watching the president's strategy. Now, because I cannot travel right now because of quarantine, I'm here at the White House. We're relying a lot on our young reporters on the ground there. And Zach Hudak and Nicole Zaganga have been talking to me today, and they've laid out the fact that the president is really not targeting swing voters or new voters. Instead, he's trying to mobilize people who are already in his corner. And if you look at the map of where he traveled today, you can see he's heading to spots that he did well in 2016, hoping to mobilize those people who already support his policies. So that appears to be his strategy, as opposed to trying to convert the hearts and minds of new voters. He's trying to rally already his supporters who may or may not vote, so he can sort of catch up with the edge that Biden has in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia.
So on that point, the president does have a very busy schedule over the next few days. Pennsylvania on Monday, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Nebraska on Tuesday, and Arizona on Wednesday. Now, these are all states the president won in 2016. So why is his campaign targeting these areas?
Because they have to, Elaine. In most of those states, he is either within the margin of error or he is very clearly going to perhaps lose those states. They are worried. They want to make sure that any of those states that he won in 2016, that they can prevent Democrats from going back and reclaiming them. According to the polls, while the Trump campaign will dismiss them and suggest that he's in much better standing than what we see in national or electoral polls, he needs every single vote, particularly in those states. He cannot win the Electoral College unless he retains several of those key states that you just mentioned.
So back on the pandemic, so despite his own diagnosis and now 2 outbreaks within the White House, President Trump still appears to be downplaying the pandemic and contradicting his own health advisors and members of his administration. Let's go ahead and listen to what Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said yesterday on CNN and what the president said earlier today.
We're not going to control the pandemic. We are going to control the fact that we get vaccines, therapeutics, and other mitigation.
Why aren't we going to get control of the pandemic?
Because it is a contagious virus, just like the flu.
No, not at all. In fact, the opposite. Absolutely the opposite. We've done an incredible job.
So, Paula, why does the president keep taking this approach to the virus?
It's so interesting to see those 2 statements back to back, Elaine. One of the few consistent things here at the White House over the past very chaotic last 9 months of this pandemic have been these inconsistent statements coming out of the White House. There, Mark Meadows seeming to concede that, in fact, they will not be able to get this under control, even if they engage in mitigation efforts, while President Trump suggesting that, in fact, they have it all under control. But the president's message, as we know, particularly from his recorded conversations with Bob Woodward, is that he wants to project optimism. He wants people to think that there is hope, in the hope that they will vote for him, that they will expect either that they feel safe to send their children back to school, which makes it easier for parents to go back to work. This has been the president's strategy since the beginning. He says that he wants to give people hope, even if it flies in the face of the facts. Even as we're seeing these record number of new cases, he wants to give people a reason to believe that things are going to get better. But again, if you look at our polls, people aren't necessarily buying this message. While people certainly have COVID fatigue, they don't necessarily buy what the president is selling when it comes to the state of the pandemic. Overwhelmingly, voters do not approve of his handling of this virus.
All right, Paula Reed at the White House for us. Paula, thank you very much.